In New Mexico, one of the worst pileups in state history happened on March 8, 2002. Shortly after 1 p.m., vehicles hum along a barren and windy stretch of Interstate 40, approaching the town of Cuervo. What none of the drivers can see is a brush fire up ahead, sending waves of smoke into the air. Lori Corley is asleep in the back of a school bus with 3 teammates from the Logan High School basketball team. Up front, the assistant coach and his wife sit next to the bus driver. They are headed home after losing a tournament in Albuquerque.
We decided the next day to leave because we didn't want to watch anyone win, because we were supposed to be the ones winning. So we went home that day. There was only 4 of us. The rest of them stayed.
Right behind the school bus, Richard Huff is just waking up in the back of the red 18-wheeler he drives as a team with Melvin Parks.
Getting close time for me to switch with Mel. I was sitting on the bunk heating my lunch up in the microwave. I was talking to Mel through the curtain.
Up front, Melvin doesn't notice growing clouds of smoke near the road ahead. He's having a hard time steering in the heavy wind.
It is so severe, the cruise control will not stay set on the truck from the rocking motion. I don't know what trips it off, but it will rock the truck so bad that you cannot maintain your speed.
Less than a mile in front of the red truck, George Faulkner is towing his wife's car behind a U-Haul.
There was a strong wind out of the west that day. In fact, they were reporting on the radio that it was 60 miles an hour out of the west.
Faulkner sees fast-moving smoke crossing the interstate ahead. He slows down, but keeps going. As he crests a hill in his U-Haul, the white smoke suddenly grows dense and blankets the road. Faulkner is now driving blind.
I was approximately halfway through the smoke when I heard a bang, like, you know, like a crash. I looked in my rearview mirror and I noticed an 18-wheeler that had rear-ended a Jeep-type vehicle.
The 18-wheeler swerves away from the Jeep into the right-hand lane and hits the car Faulkner is towing. Faulkner pulls off to the side of the road. But the driver of the truck does not. She simply stops her vehicle and, according to Faulkner, gets out.
Well, at this point, we were obviously concerned for her safety and was hollering at her to get off the highway. We were afraid that a car would come around her truck and hit her.
Behind her, the Logan school bus, the red 18-wheeler, and a group of cars and trucks are entering the smoke. And none of the drivers can see that her truck is stopped in the middle of the road. On Interstate 40 in New Mexico, 12 cars and trucks have driven blindly into a cloud of thick smoke. Why was there smoke on the road in the first place? 4 years later, retired New Mexico Police Sergeant Jeff Vick has returned to the accident scene he investigated.
The fire started over here. Union Pacific Railroad was heating rail with their torches. It was quickly out of control because of the 60-mile-an-hour winds, and it was spreading to a point to where it was covering this whole general area that you can see out in front of us.
It all started with a spark. A Union Pacific rail crew was using a welding truck to fix railroad ties. A smoldering tie set the dry grass on fire. The crew had already used much of its water supply to fight earlier brush fires that day. And winds were now fanning the flames. The fire jumped the highway and burned through a grassy median, creating fast-moving waves of smoke that covered the road for a quarter-mile.
They traveled into the smoke, lost visibility, and continued high rates of speed. They were just outrunning their range of vision. And at that point, they were committed to whatever was in front of them.
In front of them is an 80,000-pound semi-truck stopped in the road, the trigger for a deadly pileup. First, a pickup slams into the back of the truck and spins out onto the side of the road, followed by a green van. In seconds, 2 more passenger cars and 3 large trucks enter the smoke and create a pileup in both lanes of the highway. A motorhome towing a car is next. Asleep in the back of the bus, 17-year-old Lori Corley doesn't see the danger ahead. But she is thrown into the seat in front of her as the bus smashes into the back of the motorhome.
At first, when we slammed against it, I thought we just may have hit something like off the road. But when I saw like the glass and I heard like people screaming and stuff, I knew that we were either in a wreck or we rolled or something.
Just behind them, Melvin Parks is driving a red 18-wheeler, and it's headed straight for the back of the bus.
Pictured it full of 30-some kids, and I couldn't picture us running into the back of it. I would have done anything to keep that from happening.
Panic-stricken, Parks veers to the left to avoid hitting the kids and smashes into a moving van. Inside the school bus, everyone scrambles to escape. They are all alive, but the adults are injured.
We went up there, our bus driver was trapped inside with the steering wheel on her legs. She couldn't get out. Our other assistant coach got slammed into the truck driver in front of us, went through the windshield and got slammed back inside. It started filling up with smoke because things started catching on fire. The engine was catching on fire. It started smelling really bad, and it gagged you.
Inches away, these clouds of smoke are engulfing the red 18-wheeler. Melvin Parks tries to get his partner out before there's an explosion.
And he was sitting there, and I said, "Let's go, Huffy." And he said, "I can't." And I said, "What do you mean you can't?"
My knee was stuck between the seat and where the door had crashed in. The dash come in, and it just stuck.
Help is on the way. Rescue worker Frank Madrid is already answering a call to what he thought was a routine brush fire.
You could see the white smoke. So we got about 3 miles from the accident, and the white smoke changed towards black. So I told the guy, there's something else burning there besides grass.
Rescue worker Tammy Gonzalez is also on her way.
I turned to my partner, Chris, and I told him, I said, this is really going to be bad. And again, we had no communications, so we really didn't know what we were going to come across.
In the school bus, some of the girls rush to help the driver. But they can't get out.
We couldn't get to the front door because it was catching on fire. We wanted to go through the back, so we tried to, but the handle was stuck, I guess from like the impact of the wreck. it caused it to lock on its own.
The only way out is the windows. But outside, Lori sees only burning cars and pavement.
When we jumped, we just jumped, closed our eyes and jumped.
In the truck next to the bus, Richard Huff hears gas tanks exploding all around as he tries to free his foot.
It's just like, this ain't happening. This is a dream. You know, I'm gonna wake up here in a minute, but it wasn't a dream.
His foot comes loose and Huff escapes. Meanwhile, an unknown man helps the girls rescue the coach, his wife, and driver from the bus. As everyone runs for safety, Lori witnesses a gruesome sight. Another victim of the crash stuck in his burning truck.
We could hear him yelling, "Oh God, someone help me. You know, Jesus, you know, please God, I love you, help me get out of here." But we couldn't go and help him because it was on fire so bad.
Minutes later, the rescue teams arrive.
I just heard screaming. It was the worst screams I've ever heard. Between the smoke, I saw a lady in the van on the passenger side, and I saw her leg was pinned real bad. And I knew it was gonna explode sooner or later. And what really hit me was he told me, "Don't let me die here."
Frank Madrid needs to find a way to get people out of the burning wreckage alive. But he's running out of time.
If you have back pain, arthritis, fibromyalgia...
840 in New Mexico, 12 vehicles have crashed in a massive pileup that has set off explosions. Frank Madrid tows a burning van from the fire with a woman trapped inside. As she is pulled to safety, Frank rushes to save her husband, who is pinned under a smoking semi-truck.
And I remember his legs are sticking out, and you could probably see almost his belt. So I grabbed him by his legs, and he was still kicking. And I tugged him, and he didn't move, so I pulled him a little harder. And by that time, the semi went completely in flames, and it just got too intense, just real hot. And I had to go. It was just, yeah, I just couldn't handle the heat no more. That's when I just turned around and walked away. And that was the worst feeling I ever felt. Just to leave somebody there.
When police investigator Jeff Vick arrived at the scene 1 hour after the crash, he found masses of molten metal that had once been cars and trucks.
When I arrived on the scene, it was a very disturbing sight. You know, it reminded me of the road to Baghdad. Of course, fire raging and smoke all over the place. The wind was blowing and dust was everywhere. It was like a scene from hell.
In the end, the crashes and the flames claimed 7 lives. Today, a memorial stands on the side of I-40. For most who drive by this marker, this is just a reminder of another highway accident. For others, it's personal.
They were somebody's brother, somebody's uncle, dad, brother, sister. All these people stood for something in their life, and now they're gone. And it takes you back. And one of the gentlemen that was involved in the accident was a friend of my brother's. He was 50 miles from home. And I remember my brother calling me that night, and he asked me, he says, "Sis, do you know if there was a certain colored pickup truck involved in that accident?" And I said, "BJ," I said, You can't even start to imagine what that scene looked like. I said, there is no way you could tell any color of any type of vehicle. I said, I would have no idea. And he said, well, he was supposed to have been home this afternoon, and he still hasn't made it home.
BJ's friend never made it home. He burned to death in his pickup truck.
This debris that we see next to this memorial here looks like it's debris from the crash site, and just kind of serves as a reminder to how tragic these traffic crashes can be and how devastating the loss people can have because of this.
The National Transportation Safety Board determined that the probable cause of this accident was the use of open flame and high wind by the Union Pacific work crew. After the accident, 5 of the victims' families sued Union Pacific. But the railroad in turn sued some of the drivers and the trucking companies, claiming each driver entered the smoke blanketing the road at unsafe speeds. In the end, the case was settled, and damages were shared by Union Pacific and several of the trucking companies.
I think the railroad, the way the conditions were real dry and the wind was picking up, they should have never been torching. And then also, if the people, if they saw that smoke, that thick as it was, they should have never drove into it either.
On I-40, the smoke triggered a disastrous chain reaction that ended in a 12-car pileup. Safe.
The highway is not a safe place, and I think that you can be lulled into believing that it is a safe place, but you need to be attentive at all times because anything and everything happens out here on these highways.